Welcome back. In this step, let's look at two other important components of a if statement, else and elif. Let's start with else. Let's take a scenario when I has a value of 2. What I would want to do is I would want to print, if I is an even number, I would want to print I is even. Otherwise, I would print I is odd. Earlier, we wrote code like this, right? So if I mod 2 is equal to 0, what does that mean? If I mod 2 is equal to 0, then print I is even. We did this earlier. However, if this condition is not true, I would want to do something else. I would want to print I is odd. How can I do that? That's where else comes into picture. You can type in else colon and print I is odd and semicolon. So you can see that I right now is even. Now if I say I is equal to 3, then the condition of the if would be false. So the else would be executed. So if you look at it right now, what would be printed? It would print I is odd. So the way else works is if this condition is not true, if the if condition is not true, then the code inside the else gets executed. The next thing which we would want to look at is elif. I would want to do something if I has a value of 2, I would want to do something else if I has a value of 3, and I would want to do something else if I has a value of 4. How can I do things like that? That's where elif comes into picture. So if I is equal to 1, what do I want to do? I would want to print I is 1. Actually, in all the earlier examples, I don't really need a semicolon because in Python, you don't really need a semicolon. So if I is equal to 1, print I is 1. Now, I would want to have another check in here. I would want to say else if I is equal to 2. So if I is equal to 2, then I would want to say print I is 2. Else, I'd want to print I is not 1 or 2. What would happen? The current value of I is 3. So if I is equal to 1, print I is 1. Elif I is equal to 2, print I is 2. Else, print I is not 1 or 2. What would happen? Think about it. It prints I is not 1 or 2. So the way else if works, you can read elif as else if. So if this condition is true, do this. Else, if this condition is true, do this. Else, do this. So if both these conditions don't match, then this code is executed. If either of these conditions match, then that specific code alone is executed. What we'll do now is we'll switch over to our IDE and try a few programs with if and else if. So I'm going to create a new Python file, right click new Python file, and I would say elif examples, and I'll assign a value of I is equal to 5, and if I is equal to 1 colon print I is 1. Elif I is equal to 2, print I is 2. Else print I is not 1 or 2. Now let's fix the compilation errors. There should be a colon here, there should be a colon here, right? So make sure that you have a colon here. The parentheses are not really mandatory, so I can do this as well. This is cool as well. And let's run this program. Right click, run elif examples, and you can see the output is 1 I is not 1 or 2. So if I is 1, what would be the output? It prints I is 1. If I is 2, what would happen? This code is not executed, so it would go here and it would print this. Let's see what would happen. I is 2 is being printed. In this quick video, we looked at two important components of the if statement. We looked at else and elif. Elif is like else if. So if this condition is not true, then this condition will be checked. If this condition is true, then this code is executed. If this condition is not true, then it would go to the else. The interesting thing is the fact that you can have multiple elifs. So I can have something like elif I is equal to 3 and say here I is 3, and I can say here I is not 1 or 2 or 3. So you can have multiple elifs, and else is the last thing inside the if block. I'll see you in the next step where we will talk about a lot of other stuff. Until then, bye bye.